This video will be about the extraction and cutting of cured samples. The samples shown are 828 DEA GMB, but the process is the same for all cylindrical samples. As always, there are written manuals to assist with further questions. The tools needed for extracting or removing the samples out of the syringes are a hammer, pliers, wire cutters, safety glasses, and of course the samples. Start by cutting the side of the syringe as far as possible with the wire cutters on opposite sides of the syringe. Now make sure your safety glasses are on and use a hammer to hit the sealed tip of the syringe until there is a gap between the sealed tip and the sample. Using the pliers, squeeze the tube at the newly formed gap just above the epoxy to push the material out. Then, when enough of the sample is sticking out, you can pull it out with your hands. When finished, put the samples in a sealed baggie and mark the bag with the batch number found on the batching sheet. Then place the samples in the freezer. The next step is cutting the samples into 1-inch cylinders for instron testing. Safety glasses are recommended for this process. We will be using an isomet Buehler saw. Other required items are the samples, Allen wrenches, a permanent marker, digital calipers, aluminum sharpening block, plastic bags, and paper towels. First, fill a cup with water and pour it into the trough beneath the saw until it is 2/3 full. Then swing the trowel back under the saw and lift it up until the blade is sitting in the water. Place a metal block underneath the trough to keep it from falling during operation. Check the speed dial and sharpen the blade of the saw. This is done by moving the sharpening block closer to the saw, stopping a little bit away from the saw. Make sure the blade is positioned to cut a new part of the block. Then turn on the saw and make a cut part of the way into the block. Remove from the block and turn off the saw when done. Next, the removal of a cap of the sample. Place the samples in the sample holders tilted above the saw. Tighten the screws using the Allen wrenches so that the sample is straight. The saw should be off before continuing. Now bring the sample down close to the saw blade to check the positioning of the cut. The saw blade should be placed as close to the end of the taper as possible while still on the flat side. This is about the distance between the thumbnail and finger or the width of a penny. Move the saw blade using the knob behind the saw until the blade is in the proper position. Remove your hands and turn on the blade. Be prepared to stop the blade as soon as the sample is finished. The cap can fall and roll anywhere, but if it falls into the water, it can damage or dull the blade. Remove a cap from the water by removing the metal block and lowering the trough. Then fish out the cap. Do not fish out the cap any other way. Return the trough to its proper position. Lift up the metal sample arm and remove the sample. Repeat the capping process until all samples are capped. Every 3rd cut, the blade needs to be sharpened, and every 6 cuts, the water needs to be changed. After the samples have been capped, they need to be cut into 1-inch long instron samples. Use digital calipers to measure an inch from the top of the sample, using the bottom edge to scratch the sample as a marker. Then use a Sharpie to ink the scratch. Return the sample to the saw and cut on the line. Retrieve the inch-long sample and set aside. Remove the sample cylinder from the holder and again mark an inch down from the top. Put these samples in so that the curved end is sticking out of the holder and secure them. Once the sample has been cut, remove the fallen curved end using the same method as removing the cap. The end and the cap of the cylinder are put into their own smaller bag, labeled batch ends, and set aside. They can be used to make DSC samples. It is normal to get 2 samples from each syringe. Repeat with the rest of the cylinders until all are cut. When all samples are cut, use a paper towel to clean up any spilt water, sharpen the saw, turn it off, and empty the trough.